Thank you very much for your introduction, and I'm very happy to be here and make presentation today. And my presentation contents is actually slightly different from the title, which is in the agenda. The contents is actually based on the paper which was published this year, spring, I guess. And many of the co-authors were contributed to this work, and I very much appreciate to all co-authors. And on behalf of them, I would like to introduce our work. So let me start from the background. We are thinking that national scenarios would have more room to be improved, actually. So our background starts from the scenarios and the national circumstances. So, and as you know very well, many countries placed carbon neutrality goals towards mid-century. I guess now more than 100 countries somehow pledged to make their countries carbon neutral. And nations are supposed to upgrade and revise the policy targets periodically under the global stocktake. I don't know whether this carbon neutrality target will be revised in the future, which might be strengthened, or it might be more concrete than before. But anyway, this is the current national circumstances. And meanwhile, scenario circumstances slightly, in my understanding, is that slightly behind of the current climate policy stations. But let me start from the global one. I think the model-based scenarios are quite important to instruct the policies and any pathways towards the carbon neutral goals. And global scenarios are quite well compiled in IPCC databases, which are quite intensively analyzed by many researchers, and I think well matured. In the IPCC database, there are many model intercomparison MIPS are there, and I think we can get some robust insights from there, and it also has a role to foster community levels. However, the national scenarios are slightly different from the global scenarios, and I'm pretty sure that national scenarios are also existing in many countries and contributing to the national policy making. And also, there are some model comparisons within the countries. And as far as I understand, US, EU, if I say EU is a country, but it's a region, but anyway, there is a multinational models, and China, India, and Japan. There might be some other countries, I'm sorry if I miss. And there are also slightly different kinds of model comparisons, which incorporates the multi-global models plus one national model, which was undertaken by CDLinks, coordinated by CDLinks, Brazil, China, India, Russia, Japan, at least providing some insights from this project. And cross-country comparisons are also existing, which at least as far as I know, Asia, Latin America, and some other cross-continental or cross-country comparisons are also existing under COMMIT and DDPP. And well, this table summarizes the situation of the national and global scenarios. Well, I shouldn't go in detail, which would take a bit time. But anyway, yeah, integrated assessment models are basically contributing to global scenarios, and the national. There are also national energy integrated assessment models. But what I want to highlight here is scenario implementations. So as I said, global scenarios are quite well, organized, and there's a very well well-described protocol to run the scenarios and intensively assessed. However, up to now, I think there are quite few standards or standardizations in national modeling framework. And so in this work, we wanted to propose some kind of a guidepost for the national scenarios. And to do this, actually, we should understand the complexity of the national scenarios or national climate target. In the global total, we might need just have a global ultimate long-term target. There can be a variations in terms of a 1.5 degree, whether we allow a large amount of negative emissions or not, or something like that. But anyway, national circumstances would have slightly different situations from the global one. So of course, global target is the first milestone to determine how much they need to reduce the emissions. And then actually under the same global target, we have a kind of a range of uncertainties. As Yuri showed, 1.5 degree stabilization equivalent scenarios are there, but there are some ranges. And so we need to select some sort of a range or a specific scenarios, global pathways. And then after determining the global pathways, still we need to decide what sort of effort sharing should be selected. And other than that, economic development stages and other societal priorities would also concern with the national targets. And considering these, a little complex situations, on the other hand, given the current national scenario situation, I think it would be better to have a sort of a scenario that are compatible across the countries, which enables us to assess the climate individual national targets. For example, some countries may have a very limited potential in renewable energies, but at the same time, they have a same carbon neutrality goal. And what does it mean for these countries? For the country who has a limited renewable potential, then it might be quite difficult to achieve the carbon neutral target. And so in order to assess such kind of things, we need to have, it would be better to have a sort of a common or standardized national scenario frameworks. So there are some criteria which we would like to consider. So one is cross-national comparability, and compatibility and cohesion with global climate goals, policy relevance, of course, and ability to address critical national target uncertainties. This is actually because I am Japanese, I was quite concerning about the nuclear decisions. It might be quite national specific concerns. For Chinese, it may not be. And simple implementation without ambiguities in the interpretation of the modeling protocol is also, I think, it's quite important. It will be more closely related to the capacity development of the national scenario communities. And within this proposal, another aim to propose a national scenario framework is to enhance the participations by newcomers, by new countries, so that we can compare more broader sets of country scenarios. And so our proposal is rather simple, or something illustrated in this slide. So for 2030 near term, we fixed as the NDC emissions target, although already it's there are many countries with revisions of the NDC. Therefore, we might need to consider to add here updated NDC. But anyway, let's forget that. And then linearly connect with the 2050 targets with just simply adding a 10% reductions like here. And then we have a sort of a quite similar emissions pathways across the country, although the baseline could be quite different. And we needed to have more actually detailed specifications in the protocol. And for example, whether we take into account CO2 or non-CO2s, or if we would decide CO2, then whether we should account non-energy related emissions or not, such kind of things would be needed to be specified at the end. But in the paper, we actually said something like, we indicate that there is a kind of a default standard specification, but we wouldn't totally force to all nations and models to follow that protocol. It should be flexibility to take into account individual national circumstances or the model development stages. And we implemented this scenario protocols in Asian countries, where we have 6 representatives in the paper: Japan, Korea, China, India, Thailand, Vietnam. They worked very hard to realize these scenarios. And in this paper, we actually use same A model or national models for individual countries. And so there is actually a kind of a bias in the results. We have just scenarios made by a same modeling code. And so we may need more variations in model implementations at the end. So let me give you some results examples.
Shinichiro, you have got 2 minutes more, just to let you know.
Okay, thank you. So here we have Japan's example, Japan's CO2 emissions is here. And as I said, we should consider the global emissions pathways and effort sharing. And then we can compare individual percentage reductions will be corresponding to a effort sharing scheme and global climate stabilization target here, something like that. And in line with that, we can assess energy supply, for example, which this figure shows the 2050s energy supply compositions, where we see a kind of a almost stable primary energy levels until 50% reductions, while the compositions are changing, and then started to decline the total amount, as well as the steep increase of the renewable energy. And we also see some sort of a non-linearity in carbon prices and GDP losses. And I hope that the policymakers would see these variations and what does it mean for their country's national target. And we also had cross-national comparisons. As I said, 6 countries informations are plotted in these figures. So, for example, sorry, it's not well organized. So here, this panel shows the energy intensity change rate, and there are huge variations. So I would say energy intensity can vary across countries depending on the national circumstances. But on the other hand, we see a clear correlationships, for example, in electricity rate. This horizontal axis shows the emission reduction rates from 2010. So electrification would be a common non-regret measures to reach the decarbonization, something like that. So there are some caveats. I would skip this slide, sorry, due to the time limitations. And as I said, I am thinking that this proposal would contribute to a community and capacity development. If we have this kind of a simple and standardized framework, then many countries, new modelers can think to join this and submit scenarios, for example, to IPCC database, then the IPCC database would have a much richer and very interesting analysis would happen. So let me conclude. We proposed a new systematic and standardized scenario framework for long-term national scenarios, and we discussed some rationales, advantages, and actually there are disadvantages, but I didn't talk much about this. Please see the paper if you have an interest. And I think this proposal would contribute to develop the community and model capacity. And I hope the policymaker, our community would have much more resources and capacity to contribute to the national scenarios assessment, as well as real realization of the carbon neutrality. Thank you very much.